kind of want to explain what you're seeing. What you're seeing here is a visual aspect of what we thought this community represented. Hands holding together, different color skin tones represented. We wanted to have African-American and multi-ethnic families be able to see themselves in this image. And also you see an apple that represents our connection to teachers. So it's like an apple heart, that we support teachers. We are building our community around our common interest, which is education, but that's not where our only common interest lies. And I'll share a bit about the name in the next slide. So our full name, as it is right now, is Alameda Mosaic Educational Advisory Committee. So everything you hear today, including the name, can be revised in a year. We just wanted to have a starting place. So why mosaic? Mosaics are beautiful works of art created with pieces of glass or tiles in different colors and shapes, assembled to create a whole, just like each of us. We all are very different. We all are different shades and tones. And so we wanted to find items that represented ourselves and that our children can find representation in themselves. Part of what we created as pieces of logo is a map of Alameda. Now, if you've never seen a map of Alameda look like this, it's because generally Bay Farm is not part of the map because it doesn't look as pleasing. But Bay Farm is very important to the educational structure of AUSD. Bay Farm is where two schools that are part of AUSD, and we want to make sure those two schools, Bay Farm and Earhart, are treated and included just like the rest of the schools. You may note that that's where Hart is because we do want to have that environment be as inclusive as the rest. You also note that there's versions of what family is. We know we're using the word family on purpose. It's not about being parents. It could be a parent, a guardian, an aunt, an uncle, a grandmother, a grandfather. So we want to use language that's inclusive because our family structures are all different. Some people have one parent or family member, some people have two, and you will see that represented. We also have students that have special needs. We have students that are learning sign language. We have students that are focused in math and reading and writing. So all of those pieces were created to bring voice to the differences in our students. So this is the team so far. Again, all of this you should know that you should see yourself and you should see the space for yourself. These are all of our starting members, the people that came forward in the beginning to create everything you're seeing today. It's just a start. There's no foundation, nothing is founded. There's nothing to say that you should not feel that you've missed the starting mark because we're here to make sure that everybody can feel included in what happens going forward. Presenting with me today is Kara Bossard. I am Danielle Poole, Alana Moosin, Anna Johnson, and Nidra. Off to you, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Danielle. So Alameda Mosaic was born out of the CSACE process. CSACE is the Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Services Plan required by the state to address the reasons behind overrepresentation of African-American students in special education at AUSD. The idea for this advisory committee was born out of CSACE stakeholder focus group discussions around implicit bias and racism. It has been designed by families for families. It became clear during the second CSACE stakeholder meeting that a shift was necessary because of the harm being caused to families of color involved in the stakeholder meetings. For some, discussions of racism reopened old wounds. Data sets pertaining to African-American, Black, and multi-ethnic students were so small that people could essentially identify their own students. The district showed a profound willingness to listen to families and pivot the CSACE process in order to make sure the voices of African-American, Black, and Black families were centered. The district's commitment to family engagement continues with their support of this advisory group. A key takeaway that came out of the focus group discussions was the need for greater family engagement. Other themes included lack of representation of educators and staff of color, as well as a lack of accountability around implicit bias and racism. Next slide, please. The mission of Alameda Mosaic is to provide a forum for the families of African American, Black, and multi-ethnic students to share their voices and gain the knowledge that they need in order to successfully navigate the complex educational landscape and advocate more effectively for their students. Our goal is to create a supportive environment that uplifts families, promotes healing, and focuses on equity, inclusion, and ensuring equal access to high-quality educational opportunities and site-level support for African American, Black, and multi-ethnic students. Next slide, please. These are Alameda Mosaic's core values. I'm only going to cover a few of these because you should have received a flyer by email that covered these in more detail. Our first core value is that family engagement is a critical component of student achievement. Our priorities around this core value are to hold families up as equal status partners in the educational process by creating a community around education where they feel welcomed, heard, and respected as co-educators. We also want to amplify their voices at school board meetings and other forums where culturally relevant perspectives and advocacy can influence decision-making. Our second core value is to create safe spaces for difficult conversations in order to build stronger, more sustainable school-family partnerships and remove barriers that sit between students and their path toward success. Our fourth core value is that Alameda Mosaic will advocate for approaches designed to interrupt the inequitable outcomes for African American, Black, and multi-ethnic students, including the identification of and access to appropriate support services, including academic support, behavior support, counseling and interventions, and others, and utilization of all available resources to which students are entitled at every school site. And last, for purposes of this presentation, core value number 5, representation matters. Students in our district need to see reflections of themselves in their educators. We know that connecting with educators of similar ethnicities and backgrounds can have a huge and lasting impact on students' academic performance and social emotional development. With this in mind, Alameda Mosaic will look to influence the process of hiring qualified educators and staff of color. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand this off to Ala to present disrupting traditional power structures.
Alameda Mosaic is different and unique. We have power as a collective. We are going to leverage this power to influence change both culturally and systemically on behalf of African American families and multi-ethnic students. Racism is a long-standing history in this country. We are here to support those families, to have a safe space to create accountability of the systemic racism that has come against the progress and change.
Next slide.
Thank you, Ala. Alameda Mosaic's leadership will rely less on a hierarchical structure and more on a clearly defined leadership team that oversees subcommittees comprised of a broad group of families and allies that execute activities on behalf of the group. Emphasis will be placed on consensus building that attempts to integrate the priorities of a wide range of participants' opinions in the decision-making process. Voting and a decision-making strategy will be employed only when essential in reaching the position that represents the official position of the organization. An operating guide framework has been created as a part of the development of the organization. You will have the opportunity to provide input on how we function. Next slide, please. Building a collaborative community with AUSD. We are a parent, caregiver, family-led, independent entity that advocates for equity, inclusion, opportunity, support, and equal access to high-quality educational opportunities for African American, Black, multi-ethnic students to achieve their highest potential within the Alameda Unified School District. While working in partnership with the district in support of these students, The organization's agenda and goals primarily will be driven by the needs of our students and their families. And I'm going to pass the torch to Julie.
I'm going to take the torch, Nidra. It's Anna.
That's okay.
Right on. So this slide is really about how we've exercised our power so far. Alameda Mosaic. The first is we've really advocated for the creation of a new position at the district that was supported by the board that reports to the superintendent. It's the Senior Director of Equity and African American Black Multi-Ethnic Student Achievement position. And you'll hear more about that a little bit later. Danielle and Carolyn have presented Alameda Mosaic to the AUSD Board of Education, and we have their full support. Continuing to push for further representation in the hiring process at AUSD so that our students can see representation of themselves within the teaching staff and leadership at each school. And we are represented on AUSD's Community Advisory Committee and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and building collaborative relationships with other parent, youth, and community groups. Thank you.
I apologize, trying to get away from my 4-year-old that wants to play on this tablet right now. Yes, accountability and acknowledging institutional racism and implicit bias, restorative practices, and genuine engagement in family community commitment to accountability are essential components to rebuilding trust.
Thank you, Ala. Now we're going to go to some frequently asked questions because we really want to be clear about the information that you're receiving and just acknowledge some questions that we are getting quite often. Do I have to be African American or multi-ethnic to be part of Alameda Mosaic? No. If you want to be an ally or advocate for equity, inclusion, and ensuring equal access to high quality educational opportunities for our students, you are more than welcome. How can I participate? So some of the ideas that you're seeing have been thought of up until this point, but they're missing your input. So please know that anything that you see and want to include, we just need your participation and we can make those edits. So right now we're saying serving on a subcommittee. We want to have a subcommittee model where we can begin to meet in smaller groups and start tackling some of the areas which we see need improvement or our input. Attend our monthly meetings. If you can't come to subcommittees, all you have to do is attend monthly meetings and participate in the events. Read our communications. Any emails you see, anything on Facebook, anything you see sent out by the school district that has Alameda Mosaic on, just read it and participate. Take a survey, send an email. That's all you have to do. We want to make sure that participating in Alameda Mosaic has equal access for those who work, those who don't work, those who have a lot of obligations. We want to make sure that participation is accessible. You'll get surveys. We need to share your opinions, and please know that your voice is our power, and we want to make sure that you can feel heard and have a sounding board when you may not feel so comfortable. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you so much to all of our presenters and for everyone here for joining us today. And I'm now going to open it up for any questions. So if you have a question, please use the Zoom feature to raise your hand and we'll take some questions. Served as an assistant principal at Chipman Middle School and principal at Encinal Junior Senior High School. She has held other leadership positions such as Director of Student Services, Chief Student Support Officer, and now serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. In every role she has had, she has held a deep commitment to equity and to providing ways to raise the voices of students and families as part of this work. So thank you so much for being here tonight, Kirsten.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. And I think that I first have to say thank you to all of the founding members of Alameda Mosaic. And you can see the amazing work that has been put together and put into bringing this community together. And I'm super, super grateful for the partnerships that we have built and will continue to build. So I am so excited to see all of you here tonight, and I am really excited to be able to introduce Teneh Weller, who is an amazing former teacher and has been really supporting districts and teachers and staff in thinking differently about how we work with families through a dual capacity partnership. So really, how do we make sure that every family who comes into school is able to, first of all, be in partnership with the teacher and with the school so that we're giving all of our students what they need to be successful. So Teneh is going to be speaking with all of you tonight. She has also been working with our 5 focal schools and will be working with our teachers and our principals and leadership teams at our sites to start some of this work that I just mentioned through the year and into next year. So we're super excited to kick off the evening with her and for her commitment to partner with us as we move into the next couple of years. Welcome, Teneh.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And I am super excited to be here. I'm looking at the time and I recognize that our time is limited. So I'm going to be brief. Can you guys see the full screen? Or are you looking at my notes? Yay. So these are my beautiful boys. And so I taught for 10 years in Oakland and San Francisco. I started an organization where we build the capacity of families and teachers to connect. And we've worked throughout California, several other states across the country, but I'm not here with that hat on tonight. I'm really here as the mother of Samuel and Elijah Weller. Some of these pictures are from my recent trip to New York, and they are the reason why, it's the reason why I do this work. Sam and Elijah both have graduated from high school. Sam took a year off through the pandemic from San Francisco State, but will be going back in January. Elijah is on his way to UCLA in a couple of weeks, which means my heart breaks every morning that I get up knowing he's leaving. And they really struggled in school. If you ask them about their education, they would say they survived their education. Very bright, they did well, relatively speaking, academically, but they really struggled. Elijah, our youngest, struggle with reading, was far below basic in reading all the way through 4th grade. And I'm a teacher and I'm a reading specialist, right? My oldest really struggled with behavior. And I remember thinking, I wasn't doing enough. I'm an educator. Why can't my students do as well as I know they can do? And I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And I realized that the one thing that my husband and I did that was right was we set a vision for them. And we did it when they were very young. We started, I think our first draft of the vision was when when Samuel was less than 2 years old. And then we've rewritten it over the years as Elijah kind of came into the fold. And we've hung on to that vision for our kids. And that helped us realize that we were enough. And then I discovered research that actually backed that up. The most consistent predictor of how well children do academically is really their family expectations of the child's academic attainment and their satisfaction with their child's education at school. So it is not true, as you hear out there in the world, that if you are, have a certain skin color, or you live in a certain zip code, or you have a certain educational level, or you have a certain amount of money in the bank, or you have certain resources that can afford all these things for your kids, that is not enough. And it's simply not true. Families' expectation, their hopes and dreams for their kids is what predicts how well a child's doing. And you holding on to those expectations like a dog on a bone and being relentless about them, that we dream big, that we expect greatness, and that we tell ourselves every single day, we are absolutely enough. And Carolyn, do we have time to do this really quick activity, or should I just continue? You sure? Okay. So one of the things, as I stopped sharing, that my husband and I did, we sat down and we thought about what type of people do we want our boys to be. A little old lady at church told us to do this, and we listened to her, and it's the best thing we've ever done. Not what we want them to do. So it wasn't about them being doctors or lawyers, or that's their choice. They have to follow their heart's desire. But what type of people do we want them to be? And so we said things like, we want our boys to tell the truth when it's hard to tell. And we want our boys to stand up for what is right, even when it's not popular. We want our boys to have strong faith. That's really a part of who we are. And we want them to rely on that faith as they walk through life. And we wrote this letter to them. And so what I want us to do, I'm gonna, in the chat, if you could click on this link to a Jamboard, I want us just to think about, what is it that we want for our kids? What are our hopes and dreams for our own children? And I'm gonna open that up and then share my screen again. You see how I talk to myself through the whole technology process? And if you look on the left-hand side of the document, you'll see this little sticky note right here. If you click on that, you can actually write down some of your hopes and dreams for your kids, and then hit save, and it'll pop up for everyone. So my hopes and dreams for my children is that they are happy and fulfilled in life. And I guess I spelled fulfilled wrong. And if you hit save, there you go. Beautiful. I want them to be kind to others, that they're happy in life and fulfilled. Their happiness and proud to be themselves. They experience racial healing. That they are confident, courageous, and resourceful, kind, that they're grateful, content and connected, empathetic, curious. They speak their truth with power. All that you are writing right now, if you're writing and yours disappear, just go ahead and move it so they unlap. Experience a more just and equitable world. Absolutely. They're generous and full-hearted and creative. We could go on and on and on. And what I want to remind us of is when our kids are experiencing challenges, and they will experience challenges, it is a part of life, that they are enough. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with our babies. There's nothing wrong with us. We are enough. And our kids can and will be successful in life. And if we hold on to that and we remind their educators of that, we partner with their educators around that. When the conversation is looking like we're talking about mostly the deficits and not enough about the beauty and the joy that lies within our kids, that we're reminding educators, we're reminding ourselves. You guys start off tonight with the sunshines, that we are bringing those sunshines up in front of our children when we're speaking about them with educators, when we're speaking about them with our partners, our spouses, that we are absolutely enough. This is beautiful, right? And this is something that you can do with families when you're meeting with them as well, this activity. And I think that's what I want to say. Just reminding us that we bring these funds of knowledge. We bring everything that we need to the table. We know how to navigate systems, the things that we've learned in our own lives from our jobs, bringing that rich, those skills, that knowledge into the space with our kids and their education. I'm an educator. That's a piece of knowledge that I bring into the space. And I used to try and hide that. So I didn't want teachers to feel intimidated, but that's who I am. And I want to be able to bring that into the space so that I can partner with the teacher. Not being shy about our faith. That's who my kids are. And so I'm bringing that and our values into the classroom and helping the teacher understand how to utilize that for and with my child. We have an extended family. We have aunties that aren't really aunties, but we call them aunties. And if they show up for the family teacher conference, that is fine because that's who we've designated. All of those things, there isn't a natural space for that in our system. And I think that's what we really are trying to speak to right now, or trying to bring forward right now, is all the things that traditionally don't belong in school need to be in school because that's who we are. Our relationships, our knowledge, our abilities, our skills, our way of living, our family stories, all of that has to be brought into the space with our kids. And so that's what I'm advocating for as I'm working with teachers. I'm not going to be doing as much with families this year with Alameda, but that's being handled by amazing people. I'm going to be working with teachers and supporting them and encouraging them so that they understand how to partner with you. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm looking at the clock, but I'm really excited. I'm excited for you and what you all are doing.
Thank you, Teneh. Thank you so much. We have time for questions and answers, Q&A for Teneh. Do you have any questions about the material that she's presented, concepts that you thought about? Please raise your hand if you have any questions that you would like to ask her. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody that wants to raise their hand at this time, which is okay. So we're gonna move right along. Thank you again, Teneh. I love that activity.
Danielle, we actually have a question in the chat of what is your specific role with teachers? Is it a trainer?
So yeah, we're starting with working with school teams, and on those school teams are teachers, the administrator, families, family engagement staff, really looking at how can the school deepen their engagement of families, particularly families of color. And then there are opportunities to, at each individual school site, to tailor professional development around building strong relationships with families and culturally responsive engagement, asset-based engagement, in really kind of taking our cues from where each school is and designing individual capacity building opportunities for teachers. So there will be teacher training, professional capacity building for principals, as well as coaching for the team.
Perfect. Any other questions, either with a raised hand or through chat? Any other questions? That was a great question. So now my favorite part of the app, well, aside from listening to Teneh, I could listen to Teneh to you all the time, every day. And I'm really excited that you could kick us off today. But a chance for the families and community members, staff to kind of meet and greet and mingle by grade. We're gonna enter a breakout room and I have instructions to